Brexit, UK will leave the EU this month, ministers insist. Ministers insist the UK will leave the EU by 31st of October, despite a letter sent to Brussels asking for a delay. Boris Johnson sent the letter, unsigned, after a major setback in the Commons to his Brexit strategy. But the request was accompanied by a second letter, signed by the PM, saying he believed a delay would be a mistake. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the PM had proved the elders wrong by getting a new deal and he was confident Brexit would still happen on Halloween. His colleague, Michael Gove, told Sky News Sophie Ridge the government had the means and ability to leave on 31st of October. EU Council President Donald Tusk has acknowledged receipt of the UK's extension request and said he would consult EU leaders on how to react. Mr. Johnson has spoken to fellow leaders and Mr. Tusk, telling them the letter is Parliament's letter, not my letter. Labour is accusing the Prime Minister of being childlike by sending a second letter contradicting the first. The government has vowed to press ahead with the legislation to implement the Brexit deal next week, but Labour says it will seek to amend it, to add additional measures on issues like workers' rights and environmental protections. Shadow Brexit Secretary Keir Starmer also said his party would support an amendment requiring the deal to be put to another referendum which he believed would inevitably be tabled. The Prime Minister had intended to bring his deal to Parliament on Saturday, the first such sitting in the Commons for 37 years, and ask MPs to approve it. However, MPs instead voted in favour of an amendment withholding approval of the deal until all the necessary legislation to implement it had been passed. Tabled by Tory MP Sir Oliver Letwin, the amendment was intended to ensure that Mr. Johnson would comply with the terms of the so-called Bank Act designed to eliminate any possibility of a no-deal exit on 31st of October. Under that act, Mr. Johnson had until 2300 hours BST on Saturday to send a letter requesting a delay to the UK's departure, something he did, albeit without his signature. Mr. Letwin told the BBC's Andrew Marr his amendment was an insurance policy and now it had passed, he would give his full support to the Prime Minister's deal. However, Mr. Gove, who as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster is in charge of no-deal planning, accused those who backed it of voting explicitly to try to frustrate this process and to drag it out. He said the Prime Minister's determination is absolute and the government's determined policy was to meet the 31st of October deadline. We know that the EU want us to leave, we know that we has a deal that allows us to leave, he added.
Reluctant EU considers Brexit extension request. Boris Johnson made it crystal clear on Saturday, he did not want to write to EU leaders requesting another Brexit extension. And they were crystal clear in telephone calls with him that day that they were far from thrilled to be asked. But UK law demanded the letter be sent. So now what? Don't expect any speedy EU action, for starters. On Saturday, French President Emmanuel Macron repeated his view that a new Brexit extension was not good for anyone. Boris Johnson literally spelling out his opposition to prolonging the Brexit process by writing a separate letter to Brussels to say so, makes it easier for his peers Mr. Macron, Angela Merkel and others to drag their feet a little. They prefer first to look to the Prime Minister to make good on his promise to them that their newly negotiated Brexit deal will definitely be passed by Parliament. And time, relatively speaking, of course, is on the Prime Minister's and EU leaders' side. Under EU law the Brexit deadline is not until 31 October. Grumbling and moaning. In theory, Europe's leaders could wait until the morning of the 31st to hold an emergency summit to discuss an extension. Right now they are keen to keep up the pressure on MPs, to help them focus their minds on what they really want, rather than rush forward with another extension, allowing them, in EU eyes, to keep going round in circles, never uniting around one particular concrete Brexit plan. All 27 EU leaders has to agree for a new Brexit extension to be granted and they will grumble, they will moan and they will stamp their feet, metaphorically, at least. But, if push comes to shove, with the alternative being no deal at all, Dan, after more than 3 years of Brexit process and negotiating 2 Brexit deals with 2 UK Prime Ministers, We cannot imagine the EU slamming the door in the face of the UK now. If the House of Commons refuses to approve the new Brexit deal in the next couple of weeks, then granting a new extension would be in EU leaders' interest. They're keen not be blamed by their own citizens for a costly no-deal Brexit. What's the delay for? So, through gritted teeth, and only if EU leaders believe that it is needed, they will eventually most likely say yes to an extension. But a short one, if possible. They will want to know what it's for. Are there plans in the UK to hold a general election, a second referendum or a referendum on the new Brexit deal? Or is a bit more time needed to pass Brexit-related legislation? EU diplomats rule out the idea of further negotiations or amending the new Brexit deal, whatever comes out of the House of Commons over the next few days. The EU fervently hopes this Brexit deal is the last one. Leaders want to move on to the next stage, negotiating future relations between the EU and the UK, including a trade deal. The leaving bit was originally billed as the easy part,